The wind howled across the empty plains like a wounded animal, rattling the old wooden shutters of the ranch house. The night sky above stretched wide and star-filled, a cold witness to the silence below. Inside the barn, beneath the dim glow of a single lantern, the rancher stood frozen in place. She was standing just a few feet away, her hands trembling, her voice low but steady as she said the words that would change everything. "Wait, I take it off." In that moment, time seemed to stop. His breath caught in his throat. He didn't move, didn't blink. Something about the way she said it, like she was laying her soul bare, told him that what followed would shake the walls of his world. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of human connection, take a moment to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who loves meaningful stories, and subscribe to The Gentle Truth. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Her name was Claire, though she hadn't offered it at first. She had arrived at the ranch 3 weeks earlier, exhausted, bruised, and carrying little more than a satchel and the weight of 1,000 unspoken stories. The rancher, Thomas Hale, was a solitary man. Widowed young, he'd built his life in the wild plains of Wyoming in the late 1800s, where the sun scorched the earth by day and wolves howled at night. His world was simple: cattle, fences, and silence. He didn't trust easily, and he didn't welcome strangers without reason. But something in her eyes the day she appeared at his gate, something broken but still burning, made him let her stay. Claire worked hard. She rose with the dawn, helped with the horses, cooked meals, mended torn clothes, and kept mostly to herself. But Thomas noticed things: the way she flinched when the thunder cracked, the way she never took off the thin wool shawl she wore draped around her shoulders even in the heat of midday, the way her hands sometimes shook when she thought no one was looking. She was running from something. He didn't ask. She didn't tell. That unspoken agreement kept the days steady, like two rivers flowing side by side but never crossing. But as winter crept closer and the nights grew longer, their quiet coexistence began to shift. One evening, as the sun bled red across the horizon, Thomas found her sitting on the fence, staring out into the endless plains. The wind tugged at her shawl, but she held it tight, as if it were the only thing keeping her together. There was something about the stillness of that moment that settled deep into his bones. She wasn't just a wanderer passing through. She was someone standing on the edge of a truth she was terrified to face. The storm came a week later, sudden and merciless. The kind that turned the landscape white and endless. Snow piled high, fences cracked under the weight, and the ranch became an island in a sea of frost. It was during that storm that everything changed. One night, as the wind screamed outside and the fire roared in the hearth, Claire stood by the doorway of the barn, holding herself as if to keep from breaking apart. Thomas was there, mending tack by lantern light, when he noticed her standing silently, her face pale against the dark. Her shawl was wrapped tight, but her eyes were raw, glistening with unshed tears. He set his tools aside and took a step closer. She didn't move away this time. Instead, she whispered the words that made his heart stop. "Wait, I take it off." Her hands rose slowly to the edge of the shawl, hesitating for a heartbeat. Then, with a breath that sounded more like a sob, she pulled it away. What Thomas saw beneath made his blood run cold, not out of fear but out of the crushing weight of realization. Across her back, from her shoulder to her hip, ran deep, jagged scars, old whip marks, long healed but never forgotten. They weren't random. They were deliberate, the kind of scars left by men who wanted to break someone. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The lantern's light flickered over those scars like fire on old timber. Claire's shoulders shook, her hands clutching the fabric at her chest, not in shame but in fragile defiance. Her past was laid bare, and she expected him to turn away, to recoil as others had before. But Thomas didn't move back. Instead, something shifted deep inside him. The hardened, quiet man who had spent years shutting the world out found himself stepping forward. The days that followed, Claire's story unfolded piece by piece, not all at once but in fragments like a cracked mirror slowly reflecting a whole picture. She had been the daughter of a traveling preacher who had died suddenly, leaving her in the care of distant relatives who ran a large cattle estate farther south. There, she had lived not as family but as property. When she resisted, they beat her. When she tried to escape, they branded her with pain meant to teach obedience. But Claire had fire in her heart. One night she fled under the cover of darkness, riding until her horse collapsed, walking until her legs gave out, eventually reaching the far northern ranchlands where Thomas lived. She had never shown anyone those scars. She had never told anyone everything, until that night. Thomas, who had spent years burying his own pain, the loss of his wife and their unborn child during a harsh winter, found in her story an echo of his own suffering. They were two souls carrying different kinds of wounds, both hidden under layers of silence. Slowly, they began to build something fragile but real. She helped him see that the land he had once thought of only as work could be home again. He gave her the space to breathe without fear. Winter thawed into spring, and with it came change neither had expected. Claire, once afraid to stand still, began planting wildflowers along the fence line. She laughed sometimes now, a sound Thomas hadn't realized he'd missed in his world. And Thomas, the man who once walked with his head down, started to look at the stars again. He repaired the old porch swing. He taught her how to break a horse gently, not with fear but with trust. And in quiet moments by the fire, when the world felt still, they began to talk, not about pain but about future plans. One morning, as the sun rose golden over the plains, Claire stood where she had once sat in silence, but this time she wasn't wrapped in her shawl. She wore a simple dress, her back straight, her eyes bright. The scars were still there, but now they were part of her, not chains holding her down. Thomas watched her from the porch, realizing something he hadn't dared to hope for. Both of them had been given a second chance, not by fate, but by the courage to stop hiding. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to The Gentle Truth. Your support allows us to keep sharing stories that remind us of the strength found in vulnerability and the beauty of second chances. Before you go, write a comment below and tell us, what part of this story moved you the most? We'd love to hear your thoughts and feelings.